Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. This is a reading for Libra Suns, or if you have significant Libra placements in your chart and are needing a masculine energy to work with or balance within yourself, then this reading is for you. So Libra, your reading is quite an interesting one today. And before I pulled your card, so while I was just sitting and meditating in preparation for your reading, I got this download of what this reading might be about. So I just wrote down a couple of notes, which I will share with you because I feel like it's important for what this reading is. I feel like you, Libra, are in a situation where you're trying to weigh two different options, right? And it was coming through as an example of guilty or not guilty, just typical or a stereotypical justice Libra kind of energy. But what I wrote down here is it says it's not about balance in this case, it's about clearly picking a side. So I feel like Libra, it's coming through the story today as being there's two people in your environment. So it's coming through with the Emperor and the Queen of Pentacles, which I will get into. So it feels like two people where you were kind of in the middle of this situation is kind of how this is feeling. And they're almost asking you to pick a side is how this is feeling to me, Libra. And there's something else here about the importance of the context of the situation and why the crime was committed and whether the punishment is appropriate. So I don't think necessarily there's been a crime. It doesn't feel like anything sort of Law and Order, that kind of thing. It more so just feels like relationships in your life. So it could be a family or friend group that's going through conflict. And it's these are the two cases, right? The Queen of Pentacles and the Emperor, and they're both coming out with wands, where this one has 9 wands, which is talking about someone who perhaps has gone through a lot of disappointments is how I'm feeling it. And then this one with the Ace of Wands who has some sort of idea or there's something justified in this case is kind of how I'm feeling it. That's sort of how I'm seeing this, is that there's that in this case, it's there are two people that you care about perhaps, or two people in your friend group. It could be workplace as well, where they're just not getting along is how it's feeling. And so it's kind of you're having to pick a side, or I feel like that's something you're avoiding actually, Libra, avoiding picking a side because it's I feel like you don't want to disappoint either of them, right? It's that's a very sort of typical kind of response here with the fairies, the fairy who's kissed by the pixies, right? I feel like you are this person who's typically very much in the center, you bring harmony, you have a lot to give is kind of how this is feeling, right? It's you're a mediator, you're a peacemaker, that kind of thing. With the collective of pixies, which talks about sort of duty or just being part of a group and and the harmony that is required in doing this. And then you have here Lace the Moon's Daughter and Tobiah the Waters. So the Moon's Daughter, I always see this as sort of an unexpected hiccup, where it's kind of it's been presented to you, this sort of hiccup or challenge perhaps has been presented to you to almost see what it is that you're going to do, Libra. And the Tobiah of the Waters, which talks to me about sort of resetting, refreshing, taking a moment to yourself to sort of tend to your emotional well-being. So that I feel is the context of your reading, where I feel Libra, you've almost retreated from this position where you're normally sort of in the center, or if not in the center, it's more you're in the thick of it, right? You're a part of this group, being very much a centerpiece or a center point or something like that. But it's because of this situation, you've retreated and almost gone into your own energy in order to sort of take a time out and figure out what it is that you need to do in this situation. Okay. I pulled so many cards because like all of them just felt so like they were all just like talking to me about what it is the situation is. So you have these two cards, the Castle and the Stone, which is a very stubborn situation. Then you have here the Shadow, the Riddle, and the Bardo. So these three cards are all sort of this like nebulous, unsure of what to do kind of energy, right? It's like there's something here about like the Bardo being kind of like a temporary transitional space, right? I feel like that's sort of where you're in now. And then here you have the Sword. So I feel like there is truth coming. If you haven't reached that point yet, like you will be. So if we go into the current energy, the first card here is the Empty Room, which I love so much. So actually I should start off by saying, when I first pulled your cards, I was getting things like there was like a group of like 7 cards, which I normally don't take that many if they come out, but all of them were sort of related to like, it was like the heart, Eros, the kiss, like all of this sort of like romantic relationship kind of energy. But I didn't take them because I don't take cards when they come out in big groups like that. But they were all related, and I felt like it was really interesting that came out. So, I was kind of confused because that wasn't really the energy of what I was feeling, especially with what I channeled in the beginning. So there was something here about like, I feel like you've gone into this space, the Empty Room, which is talking about just sort of like quiet and solitude is kind of how this is feeling. So you may have actually also retreated from a certain like perhaps romantic situation, if there is one, or just like, I want to say just like removing yourself from a group, right? Because there seems to be conflict surrounding you for some reason. And then you have here the Gem and the Orphan, which is really interesting, and the Mask and the Apocalypsis, which I find so fascinating that these two cards came out together, because the Apocalypsis talks about removing deception, right? Which is the Mask card. So there's something here, and there's so much of that in the tarot cards as well, where I feel like there has absolutely been some sort of deceptive energy, and it could even be like within yourself, though I'm not so much getting that. It's kind of like, I feel like somebody in this situation, whichever one they are, I'm not sure who is the Emperor, who is the Queen of Pentacles, is just talking about two people with very different viewpoints. Is kind of how it's coming through. Two people with different set of experiences or different ways of being, perhaps very different personalities as well. It could be an Aries, and it could be some sort of earth sign person, but doesn't have to be. It's kind of just talking about like there is some aspect of deception within this situation, but that is being revealed, and I feel like it's being revealed through you or through your actions or what it is that you're saying or something like that. With the Orphan and the Gem coming out, because with the Empty Room, the message that came through with the Gem is that the gem, the wisdom, the diamond, the precious thing is not gained when you are in sort of like this comforting, like where you're comfortable, basically. Because I feel like this is sort of like a natural state for you, Libra, where it's like all the love that you give is given in return. It's kind of like you're in a situation where you have tried to give a lot of love, but that love has not been returned or something like that, right? Like you've been trying to do your work or to like bring peace to a situation, but what's being returned to you is not that energy. So you've kind of retreated is kind of how this is feeling, which I think is absolutely right with the Orphan, especially because that talks about like having needs that are not being met. And so I feel like there's something here about like you've retreated and gone inward perhaps, or just like isolated yourself from a group because the group dynamic is somehow not harmonious, and any sort of work that you've been trying to put into the situation has not been fruitful or hasn't like been satisfied in some way. And I feel like this space where you're at, this Empty Room, is actually helping you to gain some sort of gem or wisdom or something like that. Or it's talking about, because it's like a diamond, it's I feel like the pressure, the situation that you're in, as uncomfortable as it might be, it's kind of like pressurizing you, right? Adding pressure so that you can become this gem or gain the gem or whatever it is. So we're going to talk about the next few cards. The Oh That Gnome and the Dark Lady. So the Dark Lady is all of that sort of initiation, transition, going through like the underworld, right? But you do absolutely have a guide. And I feel like whatever this situation or transition is, once you sort of make it out onto the other side, you will be transformed by whatever situation it is. With the Oh That Gnome, to me, this kind of brings in the energy of like somebody like smashing a glass, or there's like a lot of chaos, right? There's a lot of sort of like frantic energy with this card, but within the sort of frantic distractions, there is some sort of wisdom or truth to be gained from that situation. And so I feel like that's sort of what this combination of cards is talking about. And then you have here, which is so interesting, the Laum, which I feel like is you, Libra. Because this card talks about giving a lot of yourself, right? Giving so much of yourself that it actually causes perhaps hurt or pain to you. But it also talks about the opposite of like perhaps not giving is what's needed in this case, where it's like pulling back your energy. And then you have here the Sylvanus, which is again so interesting because it's connected to this mask card, because Sylvanus talks about the truth, but specifically it talks about putting on a mask of deception so that when you remove that mask of deception, the truth becomes really clear. Because there's sometimes a situation where it could be there's something like really obvious in your present or like in your environment already, but you can't see it until you sort of like close your eyes, put on some sort of mask of deception, so that when you reveal it, it's like the truth becomes clear. It was always there, but it's kind of like perhaps you weren't seeing it because it was like something that you have grown accustomed to or something like that. Okay, anyways, so I feel like this part is now wanting to sort of go into the two cases. So, or like the two people in your environment. So you're coming out here with Justice, which I knew was going to come out today. And the Two of Pentacles, which is like talking about you have this ability to sort of maintain the peace, right? Like you're maintaining the peace or trying to find some sort of conclusion about this situation. And again, at the beginning, I was talking about it's not about balance in this case. It's about clearly picking a side, right? So I feel like there's something here about like perhaps two people in your environment are asking you to pick a side or something like that, or like make a clear decision, or like favor one outcome over the other, right? Because it's, for example, in a guilty or not guilty case, you can't say something like, oh, we're balanced. It's you're both guilty and not guilty. It's not something like that. It's something where you clearly have to make a decision. Anyways, so there's one person here who's coming through as the Five of Swords and the Page of Pentacles, which was talking to me about, this is the context that's really important. So I feel like for this Five of Swords, I sometimes see this as being like, there's a group dynamic, right? Like there's people within a group or a family, and it's like one person has taken more of their share. Like it's like it was agreed upon that everyone would share some sort of resource, but this one has decided to take more, right? Like to take more than what they were agreed to like give to others, or like they're just withholding something is kind of how I'm seeing this. Because the Page of Pentacles I normally see as being like kind of like offering up a blessing, right? Or a gift. This one today in this deck looks very much like they're not willing to part with whatever this thing is. So that's one person. The other person is coming out with this energy. The King of Wands. And then here, the Moon and the Five of Wands. So I feel like this is the one who's like, it kind of feels like, they're the ones who's bringing the case to you, right? They're the ones who's saying this other person, this Page of Pentacles, whoever they are, have wronged me in some way. They've taken something that belongs to me, or they whatever it is, I don't know. It'll be specific to your, like, I don't want to put examples on it, but it's kind of like this one is kind of feeling like, because they're coming out the king and this one's a page, it's kind of feeling like this is where the context matters, because I feel like on a very surface level, there would be, yes, I feel like a situation where the Page of Pentacles or the Queen of Pentacles, let's say, has clearly perhaps taken something or not shared something. They've withheld something that perhaps should have been shared, right? There's some situation like that. And so the King of Wands, who is also the Emperor, is saying, well, this one lied, right? Very, very clear-cut kind of answer where it's like, this one lied, this one stole, this one did something that deserves punishment or deserves consequences. But I feel like for you, Libra, it's not as clear-cut as that, because again, with the example that I was getting is kind of like in Les Miserables, the musical, like Jean Valjean, who stole, absolutely, he did steal, but the cop who is after him, Javel, the one who's just like constantly just like I feel like they're not letting it go, basically. It's like, it's for you though, Libra, I feel like it's like for you, you're seeing the situation as like understanding the context of this one, because it could be that they perhaps they're coming through with this energy, right? With the Four of Pentacles, the Four of Swords, and the Five of Pentacles, where I feel like whatever it is that they've taken or withheld, right? It could be, I feel like it's not necessarily money, because it's coming through with the Five of Swords, where it could be that they just said something, or perhaps didn't say. I'm not sure. I don't know what exactly the situation is, but it's talking about like they're in a place of need, basically. They're in a place of need with the Five of Pentacles and the Four of Pentacles, because they don't have enough, or that's how they're feeling anyway. So I feel like for you, Libra, it's like you have compassion for this situation, because clearly it's like they're whoever this Pentacles individual is like that they've done this, or they've acted in this way because they're acting from this place, right? Of not having enough, of feeling left out, or something like that. And so this one is wanting you to pick a side, or like, I don't know why they feel that you have the ability to do that. I'm not sure with the Three of Pentacles coming out, because it could be something like because the Three of Pentacles talks about like collaboration and group work, right? Like the working together with others on a project. But because of this new deck, the Three of Pentacles didn't come out in this one, but I was actually getting like a new perspective on this, where it's kind of like in a group situation, everyone has a specific role, right? So it's kind of like perhaps this one here, the King of Wands, is kind of like the one who was organizing this group, or the one who like prepared the plans or something like that. Like because they're coming out with the King and the Emperor, they're the one who's in charge, for lack of a better term. They were the one with the idea, or the plan, or the structure. And it's like this one here, the one who's actually like working on the thing with the pentacles, it could be that like the boss wanted something to go a certain way, and then the worker like stole something, perhaps. I don't know where this is coming through. I don't know how this will be like for your story. Anyways, but it's just talking about, so now it's like you as like perhaps the manager, right? So there's the boss, you're the manager, right? Some sort of like in between energy. You have a lot of authority as well, are being asked to like punish this one because of what they've done, whatever that means. And I feel like it's like you are reluctant to do that, Libra. It's like you've perhaps like just like gone into like a quiet place in order to figure out what that is, like how to do that, how to enact this sort of like, I don't want to say the word punishment, but it kind of feels like that, right? It's like there has to be consequences for this one, but I feel like the consequences that the boss is asking you to deliver to this one is not, it feels disproportionate to the crime in your case, because the boss is not taking the context into consideration, is how this is feeling. Okay, anyways, so here, because it's coming through with the moon, which I feel like there's some sort of mask or illusion about this King of Wands character or the Emperor, right? So I'm not saying that they're somehow being deceptive or anything like that. It could be that you are perceiving them as being more perhaps cruel or unjust than they actually are. So it could be something like that. It could be, because you do have here next with the Faeries, you have here the Topsy-Turvets, which talks about like something being flipped on its head. It's kind of like a hanged man energy where there's like some sort of new way that you can look at this situation in order for it to become more clear, is perhaps what this is saying. But what's interesting here is that the the Five of Wands came out to clarify the Five of Wands. So a lot of conflict on this side. A lot of, with the King of Wands, whoever they are, a lot of, like, because there's a lot of fives in your energy, it's like there is a lot of change coming. There's a lot of change for you in this situation. I feel like you are going to have to be the one to almost like deliver the verdict, even though I feel like there's resistance towards that. But there is change. Like, there is change needed, because this is not, there's something that is an illusion about this situation with the double Five of Wands, which I feel like nobody likes to see in a reading, right? Five of Wands talks about like conflict, competition perhaps, or just a lot of energy. But actually how I was seeing this today was like training, like, you know, those scenes in like fantasy stories where it's like there's this like fighting with wands, or like with sticks before moving up to the Five of Wands, I keep getting those confused today, sorry. Five of Wands, where it's like fighting with sticks or training with sticks before you move up to the training with swords, where I feel like perhaps a situation or people, like whoever this Page of Pentacles is, it could even be like representing a group, right? Like a group of people that you're connected to, where they have done or committed some sort of crime and has actually caused this response, the Five of Swords, where they've actually taken, or they've perhaps they've harmed somebody else. And so this one is saying, with the King of Wands, they're saying, so there has to be consequences of some sort for this person or group, because they've there's something about their energy that is not in alignment, because they're in the Five of Pentacles, which is talking about feeling detached from source, right? Like feeling detached from an energy that they should be a part of. And so it's kind of like they're wanting you, that the King of Wands, they're wanting you to help train these ones, perhaps, right? Like training them with sticks before they actually get to the swords, so that they don't harm anyone again. So it could be something like that, where it's like, I feel like, Libra, you can see both sides of the situation very clearly. Very, very clearly. You have a lot of compassion for the one who has caused harm. And it's kind of like there is a corrective measure that you are needing to take, Libra, but perhaps you're not wanting to, because you're anticipating this energy, which is talking about conflict. But I feel like that's what's wanting to be shifted here. It's like, instead of thinking about it as conflict, think about it as like training, because the last card that you have here is the Friends card, which is talking about like lifting them up, because they're in this energy of the Page, which is almost like feeling like it looks like a child to me, right? Like they perhaps not, they just haven't learned, is kind of how this is coming through. And then the last card here is talking about the Knight of Pentacles, which is clearly a progression, where it's kind of like, Libra, you're not wanting to punish this one because there's compassion and understanding for their situation. But it's like, instead of giving a punishment, perhaps what you can do is help train them or teach them, so that they don't do this kind of harmful action again. Because not only is it harming others, it's harming themselves, right? It's like a kid who never learns to share, that kind of thing. Where it's not benefiting them either, right? They're still stuck in this Page energy when they could be more, basically. Okay, Libra. I'm going to end it there. I'm going to move to the extended. We're going to talk about what else you need to know about the situation. Link for that is in the description box below. You can also find info for personal readings if you're interested in one of those. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.